How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Monster Territory, brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Was that the win of the season so far? Was it, an 18-run outburst? No. Was it a come-from-behind win? Well, a little bit, but not a dramatic one. But it was the energy that this game had, and we had some fireworks in the early going. Cora, Walker Buehler getting ejected. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that in this episode tonight. But in the end, the Red Sox win it 2-0 behind a very strong performance from the bullpen, as well as a couple of home runs from Rafi Devers and the Narv dog, Carlos Narvaez. And I'm telling you, something feels good in the air after this win, and it's possible, I think, the Red Sox might have found their identity. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but before we do go any further, we do have a couple of words from our sponsors tonight.
I just want to say, before Arena Club, if you were trying to very actively buy, sell, trade, it was very complicated and used a lot of mail that was unnecessary.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to do it, but I'm glad we have Arena Club now because it's a one-stop shop for everything card related.
It is, and right now you can get 20% off your first slab pack or your first card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FOUL. Use code FOUL. If you're a collector, you've got to check out Arena Club. Go get after it. Kratz, I'm going to let everyone in on a little secret. I am not a fan of carrying around physical cash. I go Cash App, where you can send, receive, or transfer money with family and friends. It's super easy. They've got your back too. Like if you're trying to send some money and you maybe put in the wrong account name, they'll be like, hey, this is a sketchy account. Are you sure you want to send this? Cash App has your back. They do it safe, securely, easily, and fee-free.
And all you got to do is download the app, and Scott can actually pay for his half of dinner.
Exactly. For a limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. For real, there's no catch. Download Cash App, sign up. It's very easy, and use our exclusive referral code Territory in your profile. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App.
All righty, let's get to it here, shall we? A very eventful game tonight. And like I said, could this be the win of the season? Could this be the win that propels the Red Sox into where they've, coming into the year, where we've expected them to be? And, could this be an identity-building win? I think it could be. I've watched a lot of Red Sox games over the years. There was something about this one tonight, and there was one moment where I really hope the Red Sox hang on to that for the entire season. Now, let's get into it here. Cora, Walker Buehler ejected in the early going. But let's talk about Walker Buehler. He got off to a great start coming back from a shoulder issue. He was out for a few weeks, but things were looking very good with Walker Buehler early on. The velo was up right around a mile per hour higher than his season average. So, arm was looking fresh. He was getting a lot of whiffs, 20 swings overall on Buehler tonight, 7 whiffs out of the 20. He was looking great. He had a couple of strikeouts to Juan Soto, Pete Alonso in the first inning, then Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Alvarez down by the K in the second inning. And you're thinking, all right, thank goodness Walker Buehler is back in this rotation. They've had a lot of struggles with the starting pitching over the last couple of weeks, minus Garrett Crochet. But then the third inning, and, with the way this season has gone so far, after this happened here in the third inning, I'm thinking, oh, man. Here we go. Is this going to be, another one of these games, right? Actually, go back to the offense. There was a couple of moments in the early part of the game. We'll get to the home runs here in a little bit. But first inning, you had a couple of walks, then a couple of strikeouts to Wilyer Abreu, Christian Campbell. Second inning, you got a couple of runners on. Hamilton had the sac bunt. But, Carlos Narvaez with the line out. Sogard, he tries to tag up and get home. And a good throw from Brandon Nimmo. I didn't agree necessarily with Sogard trying to score there. Again, I could always appreciate the aggressiveness, but I don't know. I just felt like he didn't get a good jump. To me, the ball was hit a bit too hard for my liking to try and run home. And he ended up getting thrown out. So it is what it is. And I was thinking at that point, is this just another one of these nights, right, where you have opportunities and you blow them? And but then we had some fireworks in the third inning. So let's break this down. Now, Lindor, he got hit by a pitch. It looked like Buehler got a little grumpy with that one, thinking Lindor didn't really try to make an effort to get out of the way. At first, I wasn't even sure if it hit him. But in the end, he takes his base. Then Juan Soto comes up. A cutter. Second pitch of the AB. A cutter inside corner, right in that quadrant, clearly a strike. And but on that pitch, Carlos Narvaez, he threw to second to try and get Lindor, who was trying to steal. And in the process, this is where things started to go down. So it was clearly a strike. I mean, there is no question about it. Even the umpire, Estabrook, he will definitely look back at that and be like, oh, yep, I missed that one. But I think where he might have gotten a bit tied up on it was Narvaez, trying to throw Lindor out. So maybe his eyes kind of tricked him a little bit there and he called it a ball, so that's kind of where I was thinking with that, but still clearly a strike. You got to get that call. And Buehler, during the, the whole process of Narvaez throwing a second, Buehler asked if that was a strike. And then Estabrook told him, nope, that was a ball. And he held up the 2-0 count. And Buehler, he started talking to him, not sure exactly what the words were. But Buehler, you could catch it on the replay. He was saying it was right down the middle. Couldn't hear it. He couldn't really tell everything he was saying. But then Estabrook, right after this, he got pretty aggressive right off the bat. I don't know if he was just trying to set the tone or, just trying to say like, hey, I'm the man here. I'm the umpire. I'm calling the shots here. But it was kind of the way he went about it. He took off the mask. He started approaching Buehler. And Buehler started walking towards him. And that's where Estabrook was like, all right, you need to stop walking towards me. And he wasn't stopping. And then Estabrook was like, all right, you're out of here. And then Buehler, I think he had a couple of pretty words for Estabrook at that point. This is a family-friendly show, so we will not speak of those words. But I don't know. They just got out of hand very quickly. And I think Estabrook didn't handle this very well personally. I get it. You want to set the tone. You're the guy, calling the shots behind home plate. So I understand, I guess, a little bit from the umpire's point of view, but there's a different way to go about it, and I don't think he handled it the right way. But I'll play a little devil's advocate here. Again, I am mostly leaning, towards this was on the umpire here. However, with the way the starting pitching has been as of late, the bullpen getting taxed last night, I would like Walker Buehler, who, listen, I've always been a fan of Walker Buehler. The guy's a bulldog. He's a competitor on the mound. He puts his emotions on his sleeve. I would like for Buehler. I understand that's probably so frustrating. I imagine putting myself in his shoes, I'd be pretty cheesed off too. But I would like for Buehler to try and keep those emotions in check because at the end of the day, right, you're the guy, to take the ball and try and, go deep into the game, especially with the bullpen going deep last night, doing a lot of work last night. But again, that's not a knock at Buehler. I get it. It's, when it's early in the game, could you have maybe, just bit your lip at it, bit your tongue at it and just be like, all right. Oh, okay. Terrible call. But still, though, I'm looking mostly at the umpire. It's the way he handled it. He was the one that was aggressive from the get-go. And he was kind of the one that was starting all of this, right? So that's where I'm leaning mostly towards him. Again, I don't even mean to sound like I'm criticizing Buehler here. That's not really what I'm doing, but it's more so you're the guy that's got to go deep into these games, right? So if you somehow, some way can try to find your, keep your emotions in check, that's going to be great. But I can understand completely with how frustrated he got. And like I said, I'd be pretty cheesed off too if he missed a call like that, which was clearly is a blatantly missed call. But more so with Buehler, I'm just saying I would like for him to, maybe channel that energy a little bit differently, right? Instead of getting cheesed off back at the ump, right? Kind of channel that and let's take it out on the Mets lineup, right? But you could look at it as a blessing in disguise. He just came back from a shoulder thing, right? So it was almost like another, you could say a short rehab appearance for Walker Buehler. Maybe you could look at it that way, right? But good signs from Buehler tonight. Stuff was looking good. Velo was looking good. Again, this is mostly on Estabrook. I'm not trying to put any of this on Buehler. It's in the end, the umpire needs to do a better job. But in the process, Alex Cora got thrown out, right? Of course, Alex Cora is going to be frustrated at this, right? He's losing his starting pitcher. Absolutely, you should be frustrated. I mean, if you're looking for someone that's really going to get ticked off, Cora absolutely should be as well. Again, I think it was just a bad approach from the umpire. The starting pitching's been a mess for the Red Sox. You just lost your starter. And you're looking at it from Buehler's point of view, right, where this guy's coming back from injury, and you're trying to get him back into a routine as well. So there's a lot of frustrations with all of that. And then now you're thinking the bullpen's going to have to work hard again tonight, right? They just worked hard last night. So, yeah, from Cora's point of view, absolutely. You're going to be pretty irate at all of this. But it did create a moment. It created quite the moment here. And I am so happy that we have this. Look at this beautiful picture. If you are watching on YouTube, if you're not on, if you're listening in podcast format, you won't be able to see. But Tanner Houck, I think we have found our new symbol for the 2025 Red Sox. So Alex Cora, in the process of getting ejected, getting frustrated, he ended up ripping the cover off of the bullpen phone. And Tanner Houck, after a home run from Raffy Devers later on, he went and grabbed it and he held it up like a symbol. And I think we have found our new symbol for the Red Sox this year, everybody. I am very happy we have this picture. It's hilarious to me. The Red Sox need to bring this with them everywhere they go. Listen, the people at Fenway Park, people that are working for the Red Sox, listen, go get yourself a new cover. Do what you got to do to let the Red Sox bring this with them everywhere they go. That is the new symbol for the Red Sox this year. At least I hope it is. It should be. It's amazing. I love it. Good on Tanner Houck for grabbing this thing. I never even would have thought of holding something up like that, but it ended up all just working out, right? We'll talk about the whole identity thing, right? Finding their mojo in just a little bit. But let's get to the bullpen. Bullpen was fantastic, right? Picking up Walker Buehler. And this really tonight, obviously, you didn't have a whole lot of offense, but a couple of big shots from Narvaez and Raffy. But this was a complete team win against a very good Mets team. Yeah, sure, they've been struggling as of late, but they got some good players on this team, man. And Clay Holmes, this guy's been very good this year, right? They're able to get the Senga last night. Clay Holmes, he's been very effective as a starter since transitioning from being a reliever. So give him a lot of credit. But, the Red Sox, they had their work cut out for them, but they battled against Clay Holmes here tonight. But the bullpen, they matched him as good as you could get, right? Like I said, Buehler, he was looking pretty solid. But coming in after him, Bernardino, 1 2/3, 1 hit, 23 pitches. Whitlock, 1 hit. Did give up 1 inning, 2 hits. Got a K along the way. Narvaez did help him out. He was able to throw out Lindor at one point. Wilson came in after him, right? So that's back-to-back nights. 2/3, 2 Ks. Weissert, 2/3 of an inning. Slayton, 1 2/3. Chapman with his 8th save. A tremendous effort from the bullpen tonight. Again, against a Mets team that they got a lot of good bats, right? A lot of talk's been on Juan Soto lately. He's been slumping. He's not looking like his usual self, especially the New York Yankee version of Juan Soto from last year. But still, Soto at the end of the day. You got a lot of good bats, and the bullpen, again, a tremendous job from them tonight. But then picking up the slack offensively. And like I said, at the beginning of the game, I'm thinking to myself, man, is this going to be one of those nights where you get opportunities and you're not able to cash in? But along the way, you had a couple of, I was going to say a couple of big time bats, right? Raffy is the more notable bat, of course, but Carlos Narvaez, man, oh man, this guy, coming into the year, I'm looking at the Red Sox roster. I'm thinking, all right, who could be the guy that steps up for the Red Sox this year? Who could be a guy that's under the radar right now that could end up contributing in a big way, right? Connor Wong, there was a bit of a question mark with him. But then I saw, how quickly the Red Sox went out there and got Narvaez this offseason. And that kind of said something to me that made me think, okay, the Red Sox, maybe they see something here with Carlos Narvaez. And when you looked at the scouting report with him, you took a look at the numbers in the minors with him coming up in the Yankee system, pretty solid. And I just felt like no one was really talking about him all that much. I felt like all the attention was more so on Connor Wong. But I'm thinking, this is a guy that, he does some pretty good things with the bat. He's pretty solid defensively. Aaron Boone had a lot of good words for Carlos Narvaez, talking about him last year. And I'm thinking, man, this could be a guy that's an under the radar, unsung hero almost for the Red Sox. And he stepped up. He's been stepping up in a great way this year and coming through with a big home run to get the Red Sox on track. Again, good defense from him tonight. Gotta love it. Carlos Narvaez, I tweeted out during the game, where would this team be without Narvaez? Really, where would they be? He has been such a breath of fresh air, We're all thinking at one point Kyle Teel is going to be the future catcher. And obviously they make the deal for Garrett Crochet. And that was that. But, hey, Carlos Narvaez, man, he's been very good. And Rafi continuing with the hot bat, another home run. And that was all the offense the Red Sox needed. Like I said, bullpen came in and shut things down. Now, let's talk about the identity of the Red Sox. We've been talking about this all year. It feels like every time the Red Sox take a step forward, they take a couple of steps back. You can't find that consistency. They've been consistently inconsistent. It feels like they've just been missing something this year. Something with the mojo, right? You're waiting for more energy. Missed opportunities along the way, right? Sometimes you're being a little too aggressive on the base pass. Sometimes you're not being as aggressive. You're making errors in the field. It just feels like a team where their heads just aren't fully in it. We know the talent this team has, but a team that just hasn't fully seemed like they're dialed in all year. Not saying they're not trying or anything, but just something hasn't been clicking. And the last couple of days here, something has been clicking with this Red Sox team. And then all of a sudden you saw this with Walker Buehler, Cora tonight, showing some fire, showing some passion, showing some emotion. And you know what? It seemed like the team and even the fans all over really started rallying around this. And, I'll also say this about Alex Cora. Alex Cora, he posted this on Instagram. I don't know if it was on his story or if it was a comment on Instagram, but basically saying he was so happy to go to his daughter's graduation yesterday. He had a couple of certain people out there in the Boston media, the more on the radio side of things, where, they're questioning Alex Cora, like, how dedicated is he to this team? Is there a disconnect with Cora and the Red Sox? He went to his daughter's graduation, at 10 a.m. He could have made it back for the game. I already explained my piece on that last night. I didn't see anything wrong with it. It's like, whatever, man. Life is life. Family comes first. And but unfortunately, Cora, he had to see a lot of negative comments about that. Like I said, from the radio people, you got the trolls on Twitter, giving him a hard time. So I'm sure he was seeing some of that. So maybe there was a little bit of frustration with that. Probably not, honestly. But, it's something he probably read it and he heard it. And so I wasn't even surprised for him to, on top of losing your starter, the bullpen, having to get taxed again. Yeah, Cora was, running a little, the emotions were a little high for Cora tonight. But I think the Red Sox, they really rallied around it, right? And then Buehler coming back. This is a competitor. That's why I love the signing this past offseason of Walker Buehler. Sure, he had his issues last year coming back from Tommy John with the Dodgers, but he found himself in the postseason. But this is a guy that goes out there, and he's a bulldog out there, right? It's funny because when I interviewed Walker Buehler in Tampa, I almost felt like he seemed more introverted, right? He just seemed a bit more reserved. But then you see him, like, when he gets on the field, it's a completely different guy. In a way, I'm sort of like that too, right? You know I can talk forever when I'm on camera, but if you go find me at the gym or something like that, I'm actually pretty quiet, right? I kind of keep to myself. I'll always talk with anyone, but I can relate to that, where people seem to be a bit more reserved, and then when it comes to competing and putting on a performance, you kind of get yourself going a little bit. That's what I see out of Walker Buehler. I love that competitive side of him, man. He brings it out. He's ready to just go out there and just give it what you get, give everything he's got. I love that. So I felt like the Red Sox really just rallied around that, and a great moment. Tanner Houck, gotta love it, man. Thank you, Tanner Houck, for finding the new symbol of the 2025 Red Sox. Again, Red Sox. People in I don't know who's in charge of all the field stuff, but please keep this bullpen cover with the team all year. We need it all year. I'm seeing the post-game show here. They're actually talking about the Nesson post-game show. They're talking, we're on Nesson now too. Isn't that funny? But they're talking about it now too. So I wonder if you're going to start to see more of this. The sign guy on Twitter, go follow the Sox sign guy. You probably already know who he is. He makes all these great signs. But I told him, hey, man, you got to go make a sign of this. That's amazing. So expect at Fenway Park to see a sign in the crowd at some point. But you got to love it, man. You got to love it. I think the Red Sox might have found something. Seems like they found a little bit of energy here, something to build on, something to rally around. And I think that's something the Red Sox have been lacking this year. Let's see what they do. They've already won the series. Can they pull off the sweep? That would be great if you can somehow, some way pull off a sweep against a good Mets team after getting swept by the Tigers and losing 2 out of 3 to the Braves. But let's get to the Game 3 preview. We do have a third game, ladies and gentlemen. And, hey, listen, they're in a good spot here for a sweep. You got your ace on the mound and Garrett Crochet. You are set up very nicely here. Again, though, you are going to have your work cut out for you. Tyler McGill. Remember, I also want to point this out. It's not Tyler McGill. It's Tyler McGill. You actually do have to pronounce the O-R at the end, right? Tyler McGill. He's been very solid this year. ERA under 4, but he's having the best year of his career. The stuff is looking great. Velo's looking great. He's not going to be an easy matchup, but you're matching up with Garrett Crochet here. Very excited for this. Very excited for this. Game time is at 6:45 Eastern time tomorrow. Now, when it comes to the experience against McGill, the most that you have seen is Alex Bregman. He's had 5 ABs against him. He's had success. Jarren Duran's had a couple of ABs. He's got a hit against him. Sogard's had an AB. There's not really a whole lot going on with him. Same thing for Crochet as well. Not really a whole lot there. So it's going to be interesting how they go about this. Now, Crochet, he is a guy that's leaned mostly on the four-seam fastball this year. The Mets have been a very good fastball hitting team. I know, obviously, there hasn't really been a whole lot of offense with the Mets in the first couple of games. So let's see if they really go after the fastball tomorrow with Crochet, if they try to be aggressive on him early. Especially a Mets team that has been slumping. I wonder if they really try to come firing out of the gates against Crochet in the early going. That's what I'm going to be looking for personally. And for the Red Sox, you know what? Just keep putting together the quality at bats. No, you're not putting 10 plus runs on the board every single game, right? You've had to squeeze a couple of runs across the board the last couple of games here, and they've been tight. But for the Red Sox, just keep up the quality ABs, and let's see what happens here. All right, don't be afraid to put the ball in play. Don't be afraid to work those counts. And hey, and like I said last night, talking about this game for tonight, Clay Holmes, the one thing I said, look out, Holmes, a guy that's been getting a lot of ground balls in his career. I said last night, for the Red Sox, I think one key to try and get to Holmes is try and wait for a sinker to be left up in the zone. And that's what Narvaez did. All right. Found a mistake and he took care of business, right? Raffy, the slider to Raffy tonight wasn't necessarily a bad pitch, I would say, but, it was a little too in the zone for Raffy at that point. You hung it just a slight bit, but that's what you got to do against good pitchers, man. You really got to find every chance you get And those guys did a great job with that tonight. And let's see if they can do the same thing with McGill tomorrow. So I'm excited for it. The Red Sox, hey, it's been an up and down year, but it'd be very nice to pull off a sweep going into the next series. So we do have a couple more minutes here. Let's get to the chat here. Let's see what all of you are saying. Red Sox diehard Crochet tomorrow. He's fired up about that. Absolutely. Right. Whenever Crochet's on the mound, man, I love that. Every fifth day, you got your ace. Oh, goodness gracious. But got your ace on the mound. I'm always excited for a Garrett Crochet start, man. Also, I did get my the new City Connect hat. I did get the jersey. Unfortunately, it's a little small. I got to send it back. I got to get a next size up. Sometimes the jerseys run a little too big. And I went with the usual size that I get. And unfortunately, it was a little too small. So I got to go the next size. But love the City Connect colors, man. Got to love it. But everybody, I'm going to wrap it up right there. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. This was an eventful one. Who knows if this is going to be the win that this team rallies around. Let's see if this is what propels the Red Sox into finally taking that next step forward. I'm excited to see it. We'll just have to wait and see. Again, this team's been so up and down. You never know, but I wonder if this could be it. We'll just have to wait and see. Everybody, thank you for joining me tonight for the post-game show. Do appreciate that. If you are watching on Nesson, thank you for watching. Do appreciate that. If you're with us live on YouTube, thank you for coming out. And if you are listening in podcast format, thank you for listening. But everybody, go enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of your day if you are listening to this tomorrow. And we'll talk to you next time.